Okay, we're pleased to welcome today John Comerford from the Director of Veteran Services for Eastern Hampden County. We're happy to have him here on Pearl Harbor Day. He is going to speak to us about veteran services that veterans receive and also spend a little time speaking about Pearl Harbor. John is an Air Force veteran. He's been a veterans agent for 8.5 years. He covers East Longmeadow, Hampden, Munson, and Wales. The primary district office is in Munson, but he also does maintain a satellite office on North Main Street at the Senior Center here in East Longmeadow. He's been married 49 years, has 4 children, 5 grandchildren. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. I see Mr. Federici here. He's on the board, or was on the board for my district.
Huh?
You forgot about that?
I only made it like 2 meetings.
You haven't been at the last 6 meetings, Paul. I know you're
I
busy.
just got a passport so I can make it to Munson.
I know. I'm gonna renew your passport for you. Yeah. As Joanne said, I'm a veterans agent for District of Eastern Hampden County. I call myself the Lone Ranger because I'm it. You know, I cover East Longmeadow, Hampden, Munson, and Wales. And I try to make sure that the veterans that we serve get what they're entitled to. I'm not an expert on VA benefits, but the thing I learned very early in life is if you didn't know the answer, at least find out who has the answer. So when a veteran comes to me and says, I need to get hearing aids, and they are in fact a veteran, I know they're entitled to hearing aids. When you're in the service, when you're a veteran, there's 2 things that you're definitely entitled to with the VA. One is hearing aid, and the other is eyeglasses. No matter where you served, no matter when you served, if you're a veteran, you're entitled to go there and knock on the door and say, please give me a hearing test, please give me an eye test, please help me, and they're obligated to help. I had a lovely little lady out of Munson, 82 years old. She's a sweetheart. She's about this tall. She comes to see me at least once a year. And she called me the other day, and she said, Mr. Comerford, my refrigerator died on me. And I said, well, okay. She said, and I went to Home Depot, and they have this beautiful refrigerator for $2,000. And I said, sweetheart, we're going to help you buy a refrigerator, but I guarantee it's not going to be worth $2,000. She said, but it fits the spot. And I said, I know, but we'll make the new one fit the spot. So what happens in a case like that is I approve it, and I'm the only approving authority in the district, and then I send it to Boston, and they basically bless it. And 3 days later from Home Depot, she ended up with a new refrigerator, and she was thrilled. She called me up, wanted a big cookies for me, and I said, no, thank you. I don't need the cookies. I don't need anything. Just be happy with the refrigerator. As Paul can attest to, when a town, there are 351 cities and towns, and there's a veterans agent, not paid by the state, but paid by the particular cities and towns. There's a veterans agent for each and every town. So if you go in the Berkshires, in Washington, there's a guy up there that covers maybe 3 towns. I cover 4 towns. Somebody might be Boston, cover just Boston. But no matter where you go in the Commonwealth, there's somebody that represents the department. It's called the Department of Veteran Services, and they see to it that the veterans that walk in the door get what's called, as long as they're entitled, get what's called Chapter 115. That's the program that my focus is on, and it's basically a program that provides money to veterans that are having a hard time. Most of my clientele, to be honest with you, are the wives of the veterans. because the wives, the veteran has passed on, the spouse is entitled to apply for Chapter 115. And I also help get veterans through funeral services. The program I operate provides $2,000 towards the burial of a veteran or their spouse. As long as a stipulation in that is, as long as the funeral does not cost more than $3,000, the state will come up with $2,000 for, you know. And I do that a number of times a year for each of my towns. I enjoy what I'm doing. I love helping the vets. And it's funny because now I'm in a position where I give away money. In my old job, I used to take money back because I was a fraud investigator. And I would chase people around the Commonwealth and, you know, say, you know, I put a number of people in jail because of their fraud. So it's kind of like a 180-degree turn for me. Over here, I took it back. Over here, I'm giving it away. But in order to be eligible, you have to be a veteran who has an honorable discharge. By the way, you got any vets in the house? Oh, my veterans. I knew you were a veteran. Thank you for your service. Oh, where? Oh, okay. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. I want to talk now. I woke up this morning thinking, you know, this is December 7th. December 7th, 1941. It was a pivotal year for this country. And I was afraid that people wouldn't remember. But I was thrilled to see this headline on the Republican called War and Remembrance. It talks about December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. And I know no one here was alive when that happened, right? If we were, we're all little kids, right?
I was born 4 months later.
Okay, okay. So if what I say has an error or two in it, nobody here will know, right? I mean, I'll just, you know what I mean? I'll just wing it, okay?
No, I'm a college teacher, so. Internet.
You're gonna, yeah, all right. You'll grade me later. You'll grade me later. If you were in the service on that day and you were stationed in Hawaii, December 7, 1941, you may have been finishing breakfast in the chow hall, you may have been on KP, or you could be at the dispensary getting shots, or it's possible that your duty sergeant gave you the day off because of the extra hours you put in the previous week. This was a case, and this is a composite, this was a case of a young man from Roxbury, Mass. We'll call Mike. Mike was a private in the Army Air Corps, and at 7:50 a.m. on December 7th, 1941, he was sitting on his bunk in Schofield Barracks, writing a letter to his mother back in Boston. The letter reads, "Dear Mom, just a quick note to say hi and let you know I'm well and all is going fine. The brownies you sent were great. In fact, I got the package yesterday. I was suddenly the most popular guy in Schofield, and I actually got to eat 1 or 2 myself. All the guys say thanks and keep them coming. Thanks, Mom, and thanks for the Boston Post," which was the newspaper in Boston at the time, far greater than the Boston Globe. It keeps me up on what's going on at home. Please tell Dad and my favorite little sister I love them. I will write again. He took and put the letter in his fatigue shirt pocket, and he said to himself, "I'll mail it a little bit later on." At 7:52 a.m., he hears what he thought was thunder, and he ran from the 2nd floor of his barracks up to the 3rd floor and then from there onto the roof. He couldn't believe his eyes when he looked east, and he saw a couple of hundred planes with strange markings on them. And he knew they were not American planes, but he didn't know exactly what they were. As he ran to head to the door to run downstairs, a Japanese plane strafed the building with a .30 caliber machine gun. Mike died instantly. The letter in his pocket the letter was still in his pocket. His section sergeant found Mike 3 hours later, and as he was picking up the body, he noticed the letter. He pulled it from Mike's pocket, read it, and a bit later on, 2 days actually, he sat down and wrote a letter to Mike's family and enclosed the letter, the last letter Mike had written. He told the family to be proud of Mike because Mike ran towards danger, and they should consider him to be a hero. On December 8, 1941, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States, convened a joint session of Congress. In that session, he asked for a declaration of war against the Japanese Empire. Earlier that day, on December 8th, December 7th, the Japanese ambassador was to be at the White House to present a program, perhaps to avoid war. But he didn't. He was to show up early in the morning. He didn't show up till late in the afternoon, and he presented the Secretary of State Cordell Hull and the President of the United States with the Japanese declaration of war against the United States. As protocol would have it, the Japanese delegation were escorted from the White House. They went back to their offices, and from there they were escorted to an airplane and kicked out of the country. The vote, the president asked for a vote, and the vote in the Senate was 82-0. In the House, it was 388. This is to declare war against Japan. In the House, it was 388 for and 1 against. The only no vote was cast by a Janet Rankin, a pacifist. She was a congresswoman from Montana. Within a matter of hours of Congress declaring the country at war and the President of the United States signing that declaration, our country was on a war footing. Paper drives, scrap metal drives, and rubber drives, and all sorts of items were starting to be collected to help in the war effort. In short, America came together as it always does. In the days following the attack, recruitment centers all across this country were inundated with men and women wishing to enlist, wanting to do their part to keep this country free. With the attack itself, which began at 7:53 a.m. Hawaii time, we lost a total of 2,400 people. Another 1,100 or so were injured. 1,104 sailors were killed within the hull of the USS Arizona. And to this day, the Arizona lies at the bottom of Pearl Harbor, undisturbed, a floating grave. One particular note of interest during all this, 2 soldiers in Hawaii were manning radar posts, reported to a junior officer, probably a second lieutenant, of a wave of planes heading in their direction. As he was expecting a flight of Flying Fortresses B-117s, he chose to ignore their concerns. God only knows, had he not chosen to do nothing, how different the attack on Pearl Harbor may have been. We were aware the Japanese might attack us because on December 6th, American code breakers began to track down a multi-part message, which was made up of 14 total components. Only 13 were deciphered. Each was passed on to the White House and the Secretary of State. We had an idea the attack was coming, but we just didn't know when or where, although some had believed it to be somewhere in Southeast Asia. We have come to recall World War II as the war to end all wars. We know that's not true. Wars have been fought ever since man began walking upright. Since World War II, we've been in Korea and Vietnam. We fight now in the Middle East. We send our soldiers to battle an enemy we cannot identify. And every time we ask, America steps up. America is the one place this world looks to whenever a wrong needs to be righted or when freedom is jeopardized or threatened. And each and every time we respond, no matter where. We send our men and women into harm's way and we go and fight so that we won't be fighting on our soil. We owe a great deal to our greatest generation, those who fought in World War II, and we continue to rack up debts to our men and women who have fought and died in succeeding generations. I'm confident generations to come will step up when needed, and we will owe them also. In order for America to continue to have freedoms, they, the future generation, can do nothing less. Our very way of life depends on it. Thank you. Did I? I'm sorry?
It's not really a question, but
Did you find something incorrect in the speech? Oh, good.
I'm heading into my 9th budget cycle in the town as an elected official, and as you know, every year we try to cut here and cut there and try to do what we can to keep the budget low. And the only part of that budget that we want to see increased is veteran services, because as we know, the more that budget item increases, the more lives that are being touched by John and his fellow veteran service agents, you know, by reaching out. And it has been increasing. I mean, there's been a tremendous increase, so John's been doing a wonderful job. And I commend him for that, because I'm sure it's got to be difficult, you know, in certain circumstances. And the only other point was, when my dad passed away and we were going through his stuff, we all knew he was in the war, in World War II, but we never realized until we were going through his paperwork that he enlisted on December 8th, 1941.
Really?
Yeah.
He was one of those people I
Yeah,
mentioned?
yeah.
Yep. Good, thank you.
I think you should just have information to the speaker. Because, you know, he is a veteran and doing so much.
Oh, there's so many veterans in the room. Just please stand up. Please. Thank you very much. Thank you.
One more question.
Oh, I know.
I have a question for you. The benefits for us veterans, are there income or asset requirements in order to get the benefits?
You mean, you're talking about the hearing aid that I mentioned?
Hearing aid, the glasses, or anything else?
No,
that's-
no, but there are other benefits they have. One of them is, it's called aid in attendance. Yeah, aid in attendance, they look at what you get in and what you spend. I've had millionaires walk in and say, I want to get, and I have to tell them, you know, I'm not the deciding person, but I'm going to tell you right now, VA is not going to help you out, you know.
But they can get glasses?
Yeah, they can get eyeglasses and hearing aids. But, you know, and they can be buried at the military cemetery, the state Agawam cemetery. I had a gentleman ask me what he had to do to be buried there. This was about 3 weeks ago. And I said, well, first you have to be dead, because they don't take live people. And he said, no, really, I mean it. And I said, I mean it too. And the cemetery will not take advance reservations. No, they won't. When something happens to the veteran, you tell the undertaker takes care of it, you know.
But any veteran can be buried there. If it's a higher cost, they can pay themselves. But if I'm right, can't veteran spouses be buried there?
Yes, yeah, right along with,
They have
and,
to wait till they're dead too, though, right?
yeah, they don't take even spouses live. Yes, sir.
What about the old soldiers' home in Holyoke?
Yeah, what about it?
What do you have to do to qualify for it? I mean,
Well-
income, age dependent, or?
All of the above, all of the above. You put in an application, they go over and they determine, you're going to go on a list, especially there's one in Chelsea also. You're going to go on a list because there's only so many beds and there's so much room. But they're going to look at everything, you know, if you're a 90-year-old person and you don't have a whole lot of dough, they're going to probably push it to the top of the list. But yeah, they look at it. They look at everything, your income, etc. Yes, ma'am.
Does, say, if you were awarded a Purple Heart, does that put you in front of anyone, or it's all veterans are on equal footing?
I don't know that, to be honest with you. And I'm glad you said the word awarded, because a lot of people say they won them. You know, this is not a lottery. You don't win the Purple Heart. You're awarded the Purple Heart. But I honestly, God, don't know if they look at your medals. Yeah, I think they more look at what your current condition is. You know, more than, you know, because, and again, what you said is veterans are basically on an equal footing. You know, and that's the way it should be. You A veteran to me is a veteran, you know. Yes, ma'am?
The aid in attendance, a lot of people don't know, we utilize it because one of JGS's components is an assisted living. A lot of people don't know that you can get benefits if you qualify that help pay for assisted living.
Yeah.
I think it's about $1,700 for.
Something like
couple,
that, yeah.
And like $1,200 for a surviving spouse.
Yeah.
That sometimes is a make it or break it for someone to stay in an
It-
assisted living
absolutely.
setting. So it's a really good benefit.
Yeah.
We utilize it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we're grateful.
Do you
for it.
process the claims yourself?
I do not.
Yeah.
So I send them actually, so JGS is in Long Meadow. We, I think, have a new veteran service agent.
In Long Meadow, yeah, young lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she is.
I haven't met her yet, but, yeah.
Neither have I. but
Yeah.
Hopefully she will help process. It is lengthy. It needs to be processed by someone.
And it actually has to be, it has to be
Yeah.
done by a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, and I have people walk in and they want the forms, and I say, but you can't fill it out. I can't fill it out. A doctor has to fill it, not a nurse, has to be a doctor. So, yeah,
You need to make sure it's right, but if
Yeah.
it's right, it's a great
Yeah.
benefit.
yeah. And well, it's so cumbersome for people to do, you know, there's no wonder why it doesn't, you know, why it takes so long, because it takes forever to fill it out. But done correctly, you probably qualify.
And then, speaking of taking along, sorry, it takes maybe 6 to 9 months to get the
Yeah.
the benefit, but it's retroactive, so the.
To the day they get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
It's
great.
like if you get a VA claim and you applied, say, last year, January 1st, if they approve it, it goes back to January 1st. I once said to somebody who sends out checks with the VA, I said, what's the most money you ever sent out? He said $250,000. Because the claim went on for years and years and years, and they had to go back to the day they received it. Not the day you signed it, the day they received it, you know?
What about veterans that didn't serve in wartime, after World War II?
Yeah.
Or the Korean War?
Yeah.
Is there anything in there
Well-
for benefits for those types?
Well, again, you're probably entitled to hearing aids and eyeglasses, but as far as the state is concerned, and again, would be Chapter 115, which is what I handle, but most other benefits with the VA, you're going to have to be, it'll have a list. If you served during Desert Storm, or if you served during this period, even if you didn't go anywhere, you know, even if you stayed stateside, you know.
90 days,
90 days.
in wartime.
Yeah, yep. And, you know, I kind of get angry with the state, because if you're in the National Guard and they call you up, they generally cut you off at 85 days or 89 days or something like that. Stop that nonsense and, you know, just give the people what they're entitled to. That's all I'm interested in. Anybody else? How was the time?
Oh, you were great. You were great. Hang on 1 minute, please. As we all know, we donate a book to the East Long Meadow Public Library in honor of our speaker, and John has chosen, let's see here, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. So this will, the end of this year, we give the list to the library, and your name will be in the book.
Oh, wow.
In the library. And
Thank you very much.
ever so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your service.
Thank you.